Hi everyone, welcome back to the US CPA classes for business analysis and reporting examination. So in this particular video of the state and local governmental accounting, I'll be walking you through in detail about the format and content of financial section of the annual comprehensive financial report, and more specifically we'll be discussing about the transfer of money in and out of the funds. So let's dive into to understand more in detail. Type of funds. Like I was discussing earlier, there are five type of fund. First one is governmental fund. There are three type of fund. One is governmental fund, second is proprietary fund, and third one is fiduciary. Right? In the government fund, there are five subcategory. Sorry, I miscommunicated earlier. So in the government fund, there are five subcategory which we will discuss in detail. But government fund is being used for the activity that is not the commercial activities, right? That is for the government wide support system, which may be your defense, police, law and order, or maybe judiciary system, for all those things, right? Second is proprietary fund. Proprietary fund include two major category. One is internal service fund and the second one is enterprise fund. So what is internal service fund? We discussed yesterday. Do you remember? You guys remember internal service fund? Which we
Yes, sir.
discussed?
Common software developed, which we are giving to different government organizations.
Department, yeah, yes. So internal service fund is basically for that common service center who can provide services to the multiple entity of the same government, right? So it includes internal service fund, that is to provide services from one department to multiple department, providing services from one department to multiple department, and the primary purpose is to facilitate the operation within the government, right? That's the whole objective of internal service fund. Second category of the funds in the proprietary is enterprise fund. Any idea what is enterprise fund?
Or it is just like business activity.
Yes, which do business type activity, like we were discussing earlier: water, electricity, public transportation, airline, and all those things, right? Third category of fund is fiduciary fund. So I think this also we touched base yesterday. Do you remember what is fiduciary fund?
यस सर जिसमें
Yeah, what is that?
एनजीओज एंड उसको हम फंड्स देते हैं जिस केस में where they are in a position of trust with the government.
Where they utilize the funds for the benefit of the society and not for them.
The beneficiary should not be the same, sir.
Yes, yes. So same way how in India we have trust, NGO, society, Section 8 company, which is not for profit organization. So government partner with them for utilization of their funds. So these are like delivery partner. So holding and managing assets owned by other. When it says fiduciary, fiduciary means you are not the beneficiary. You are holding the assets, or you are holding the money, or you are holding that position for benefit of others, not for yourself. And the cost recovery oriented. For example, pension fund, custodian fund, trust fund, etc. Funds are required to demonstrate accountability and transparency when manage assets on behalf of external party, right? So two things you need to keep in mind. We are making the fund financial statement of fiduciary funds, that accountability factor should be given highest priority, right? So far understand what are the three type of funds?
Yes sir.
Now coming to more in detail about governmental fund. So governmental fund mean fund available to the government for governmental activities, right? First one is general fund, second is special revenue fund, third is capital project fund, and the fourth one is permanent fund, and the last one is debt service fund. Now, let's understand the use case of each category of fund, why those respective category of fund, why government has created so many category of fund, why not one fund can be used for all purposes, right? So there are some reporting requirement to it, which is global reporting requirement. Maybe like India, they report to the UN for it at the national level. Same way US also, they have to report their overall financial statement to the UN, right? So first thing is general fund. What is general fund? Amount for all financial record except for those accounted for in another fund. So all those amounts would be considered as general fund if that amount is not being used or not been allocated or not been provided to other funds specifically. It includes most routine operation of the entity. So that means the utilization of the fund is for the operation and management of the entity. Third one is revenue include taxes collection, license fee collection, fines collection, or interest collection thereon. So these all things comes under the revenue for the governmental fund. These revenue are recorded when they are both measurable and available, right? Property tax, real estate tax, income tax, sale tax, tax payments due from other government bodies. All other tax revenue are recorded on cash basis. So most of the revenues are being considered or calculated on accrual basis, but some part of it will consider on a cash basis, that is maybe on account of parking fees, license fees, fine, or respective form submission fee to the government department. So these all considered as a government fund, and the government fund is actually a residual fund. To be very honest, when you are making fund financial statement, you will consider this as a residual fund, which is coming in the last category. Next one is special revenue fund. So any idea what is special revenue fund? Maybe any thought or any guess you can make?
ये स्पेशल पर्पस व्हीकल टाइप हो गया कि एक पर्टिकुलर चीज के लिए क्रिएट कराओ फंड.
Yes. Yeah. More or less you are right. It's not a vehicle, it's more about like fund. For example, like you have seen in 2020, COVID care fund. So that is being specifically for the COVID care. Same way, there may be certain fund for the infrastructure. There may be certain fund for the, you can say, to support below the poverty line people. There may be a specific fund for the education, right? So specific revenue and fund which is being for the specific purpose is called specific fund. And they are used to account for the revenue sources that are restricted to those specific purposes only, other than debt service and capital acquisition. For example, fund for building highways, operating public school, operating library, maintaining public park. So all the amount which is being given is being dedicated to those specific reason for specific matter. Revenue usually come from special tax levy on grants. Right? Any doubt on special revenue funds?
नो सर, बस एक चीज पूछनी थी आपसे. ये जो जनरल फंड, स्पेशल रेवेन्यू और कैपिटल प्रोजेक्ट फंड है, सो अब इसमें जो कैपिटल प्रोजेक्ट है और स्पेशल रेवेन्यू है, अब बिल्डिंग हाईवेज जो है, आपने बोला था कि बिल्डिंग हाईवेज, और ये अब ये तो उनके पार्टनर्स करते हैं ना अल्टीमेटली.
But they collect toll.
But they
So
collect.
why it is special revenue fund? Because it will be generating revenue for the government by collection of toll. or schools by collection of fees, parks they like the fees they get for the museums and parks.
सर अभी लेकिन एक चीज बताओ, अभी हमने जनरल फंड में पढ़ा कि टैक्सेस रिकॉर्ड होते हैं, दीज रेवेन्यूज आर रिकॉर्डेड, राइट? अब ऊपर भी एक वो कौन सा था जिसपे हम बोल रहे थे कि टैक्सेस उसमें भी रिकॉर्ड होते हैं?
यही
Governmental fund, yes. So in the governmental fund there are 5 type of fund: general fund, special fund, capital fund, and
उसकी सबसे category में होगा, ठीक है?
yes, permanent fund and debt service fund. So these 5 category of fund comes under the governmental fund only.
Done, sir, done.
Because if you see, heading is same here, governmental.
Right, got it.
Okay. Now coming to the capital project fund. So when government need to make a capital expenditure, for example, they want to build a you can say railway line, or they want to build the bridges, highways, or they want to build you can say port, or they want to build maybe like some Statue of Liberty kind of things, right? So those all are capital projects, right? So for capital project fund are accounted for financial resources that are specified or for acquisition or construction of major capital facility for general government, not for enterprise and not for fiduciary fund purpose. For example, construction of library, civic center, fire station, courthouse, right? Revenue come from the grant proceeds of the bond issue or transfer. For this, they issue municipality bond, state government bond, central government bond, federal bonds. From there, they receive the money. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
If you see, like you individually, like if I say about India, every year in the budget, when it comes to individual taxation, so Government of India come up with certain, you can say, investment opportunity which can give you tax benefits. So if they are coming up with some national highway bond, so the interest on those bonds are tax free, right? Have you heard about those?
Yes, sir. नाई bonds होते हैं, sir.
Yeah.
Electricity
electrification bonds.
Yeah. So same thing what I wanted to communicate over here. So for the capital expenditure, they issue interest-free bond to the government, to the general public, and from there they receive the money for the capital expenditure. Right. Next one is permanent fund. Permanent fund is legally restricted or endowment fund. Right? Fund principal must be preserved, that is permanently retained, but income can be used for specific programs and services. Most common permanent fund is endowment fund or legally restricted fund. Any idea what is endowment fund or legally restricted fund or permanent fund?
Sir, legally restricted तो वही हो गया कि these funds are restricted for one specific use only.
No, here it means you cannot use that fund. For example, like government has found some, you can say, black money, let's assume, right? And that has been deposited to the Reserve Bank, right? So unless and until that person is being identified of whose this black money is, and they tax on it and recover the taxes and interest and penalty, till the time government cannot use that money, right? But they can use the interest on that money, because that is kind of escrow account, or you can say the restricted cash. Same way, like if you see Benami property law, right? I'm sure you all might have heard of it, right? Have you heard this law, Benami property law?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So if you see till I think 2014 or maybe 2016, there was no such law of Benami property. That means the government who is identifying or concealing the Benami property, they cannot use for any purpose unless until that person is being identified or the person who is guilty or culprit is identified and interest and penalty is being charged. But in 2014 or 2016, this Benami law has came in India. Now, if the government identified certain property and that property is being claimed as a Benami property, then they can utilize for the government purpose. And then they can do the, you can say, auction of that property as well. So before that, it was kind of permanent fund. You cannot utilize it. Make sense? Why this Benami law has came?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Because they were not able to utilize those
They're
funds.
not able to utilize. There was like plenty of property. The people purchase it in cash, and like no one is able to utilize it, neither that person nor government,
Correct.
right? So to break that chain, they come up with this law of the Benami property, that if there is no owner within the stipulated time, they publish in the market, they publish in the newspaper, and no one is coming up, then it's a government property.
Right.
And government can give it to the auction and earn the money, and then that's how like the like growth can be happen for the nation. But otherwise it's a dead property,
Yes.
right? So such kind of things will be considered in the permanent fund, where maybe sometime, for example, let's assume recently this Jhunjhunwala, I think, right? He got expired last year,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And
sir.
yeah, so what will happen with his property?
Sir, it will get distributed within his children, with his
Huh?
legal heirs.
Yeah, if there is no legal heirs, then
Sir, it will be
Wife ko.
given to his wife.
if
Acha,
there is no wife,
no one.
But
Legal
then the government will take.
government
then
will
the
take.
government will take, right? Same way, like for example, any such flood situation happen, hurricanes happen, or any such natural disaster do happen, and many people die. For example, if you see these days in Italy, right? Many such homes are completely empty because whosoever was living over there has got died in COVID situation, and there is no legal here, right? So what will happen to those properties? Those will be acquired by the government, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So those things comes under the permanent fund. If government cannot sell that, cannot utilize for any other purpose, but they can earn interest, they can earn rental income, and that income can be utilized for any purpose, right? Last one is debt service fund. Debt service fund are account for accumulation and use of resources for payment of long-term debt, principal and interest both. Interest payable is not accrued, recorded as liability when it comes to due and is payable, and revenue come from special taxes levied and from the transfer of other funds. So first thing we need to understand what is debt service fund, why this fund is required for a government. So do you think government also take loans?
Yes.
Yes,
From
sir.
where?
Yes. So IMF.
IMF, Asian
Yes.
Development Bank.
Yes.
Right?
World Bank.
So they also have certain debt, and for that they also need to make the payment of interest and principal,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
right? And they need to maintain and manage certain funds for those, right?
Right.
So that is called debt service fund, right? So these are the 5 category of funds you will see in the governmental fund. In addition to that, there are proprietary fund. Within the proprietary fund, there are 2 type of fund: internal service fund and enterprise fund, and then fiduciary funds. Right? So clear? Any doubt on type of funds?
पर एक बार डेट
Oh.
सर्विस का बता दें, डेट सर्विस लास्ट में.
Debt service funds is basically to serve the debt, to repay the interest and penalty. For that, they need to maintain certain balances, and that has to be separate than any other fund.
ओके, ठीक है.
So all 5 governmental funds use modified accrual accounting. That is, revenue and related expenses are recognized when they are available and measurable. Second is, all 5 funds do not carry any long-term assets or depreciation on their books. Fixed assets acquisition are treated as expense and charged to the expense control account. Third is, all 5 funds do not carry any services, any long-term debt or related interest expense. That will be considered as expense as and when it is incurred, and the money which you are receiving is considered as income as and when you receive it. In governmental accounting, a fund is the basis accounting unit, and it is used to assist ensuring the fiscal compliance at the consolidated level. And the general fund is the only required fund for general purpose government activity. So why do we use general fund? For all the governmental activity, that is, payment of salaries to police department, defense department, right, or administrative department, judiciary department, right. Use of other fund type will depend on federal, state, municipality needs. Therefore, only establish the minimum number of fund needed for a legal requirement and sound financial management, while established funds for the new federal, state, or municipality bond. What they are saying, you must have a general fund, but other fund you need to create as and when there is need, or as and when the respective activity will be happening. If there is no capital project, then you are not required to maintain a capital project fund. If there is no special revenue, then you are not required to create a special revenue fund separately. So that's what it means. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's do some practice questions.
Sir, I had a doubt in the previous portion.
Yes.
तो ये third point में ये बोल रहे हैं कि all 5 funds do not carry or service any long-term debt, but we have a debt service fund, right? So मतलब
Once again, so debt service fund is one a fund which you are creating to serve to the debt. But when it comes to the financial statement, in the financial statement there is no point, no line item as a long-term debt. So when you receive the money, it will be considered as the income, if I say in the layman language, and when you are repaying the interest or principal, it will be considered as expenditure.
okay, sir. Thank you.
सर एक सेकेंड, जो आपने बोला कि फाइनेंशियल्स में नहीं दिखेगा एज डेट, इनकम या एक्सपेंस दिखेगा, दैट्स फाइन, बट ये स्टेटमेंट तो अलग बात कर रही है ना, ये फाइनेंशियल्स की बात ही नहीं कर रही, ये तो फंड्स की बात कर रही है स्टेटमेंट.
No, all the 5 funds do not carry or serve any long-term debt or related interest expense.
मतलब इससे वो लाइन पढ़ के ये लग रहा है कि वी आर नॉट सर्विसिंग एनी डेट फ्रॉम ऑल द 5 फंड्स. तो जो क्वेश्चन था प्रीवियस जो अभी, उसमें यही कंफ्यूजन मेरे को भी है.
Right? Hope this is fine now.
All 5 funds do not carry or service any long-term debt or related interest expenses.
So
All
यहाँ पे
five?
basically financial statements का बात हो रहा है basically
Hmm.
per funds.
अच्छा ठीक है सर, क्लियर है।
Right. Okay, let's do some practical question. Which of the following fund of governmental unit use the same basis of accounting as special revenue fund? Capital project, internal service, enterprise, or non-expendable trust?
Capital
Yes.
project.
First of all, which one is the governmental fund?
Capital project.
Capital project only, right? So that's right answer. Second is the measurement focus of governmental fund accounting is on which of the following? Economic resources, working capital, cash, or current financial resources? What is the focus of the governmental fund accounting?
Economic resources.
Resources.
Hmm?
First one, economic.
Current financial.
Hmm.
Governmental mechanism which of the
Say that again.
सर नंबर 1 होगा।
No, economic resources is focus for government-wide financial statement, but for fund financial statement, current financial resources are
Okay.
right. Why? Because the fund is being given for the specific purpose and specific utilization of activity. Last question. An enterprise fund must be used when which of the following criteria are met? An enterprise fund must be used when which of the following criteria are met? First is activity in the financial. First is activity is financed with debt that is secured solely by a pledge of the net revenue from fee of the activity. Second is goods or services are provided on a cost reimbursement basis. Third is law require that the cost of providing services be recovered with fee and charges rather than taxes. So an enterprise fund. So what they are talking about? Enterprise fund must be used when which of the following criteria are met. So which criteria suits to enterprise fund? If I say in a layman language,
A
the
and B.
active A and B.
Sir, I
Okay.
think C should be one answer, and second should be B. B and C.
Goods
No,
and services are provided on a cost reimbursement basis.
मतलब either my point is कि either enterprise funds either are recovering fees as profits or या तो cost to cost basis पे governmental entities को if they are providing. So that's why I said B and C.
So you are saying B and C, and Arya, what you are saying?
A and B.
A and B.
सर बी एंड सी लग रहा है।
B and C.
A and C लग रहा है।
A and C. Okay, so A is the activity is financed with debt that is secured solely by the pledge of the net revenue from fee of activity. Same way like working capital loan. The first point is basically like how do you get working capital loan? Based on the inventory and receivable
Yes,
and
sir.
your recurring sales, right?
Hmm.
Second is goods and services are provided on cost reimbursement basis, that is for internal service funds, right?
Sir.
Third one is law require that cost of providing services be recovered with fee and charges rather than taxes. So yeah,
C होगा sir
C
and B.
and B. Why not A? So it is A and C actually.
A and C.
A and C, yeah. So the activity is financed by the debt by securing the solely price. So you are taking a working capital loan kind of things. So when do you take the working capital loan? When there is a profit, when there is a revenue. Right? C is correct answer. You all know, like almost each one of you touch base the C. But from A and B, A is the correct answer.